They're in our families, our friend groups, our workplaces. They're our bosses. They're in our communities, our institutions, and our organizations. They're bankers, they're lawyers, they're doctors, entrepreneurs, they're priests, they're teachers, they're therapists, they're artists and entertainers, and any other profession you can think of. I am on a mission to help empathic mothers break the cycle of narcissistic abuse for both themselves and for their kids. Today, we're diving into a powerful truth that many don't realize. Narcissistic personalities are far more common than you may know. I want to help you recognize the repetitive cycle of mental and emotional abuse, also known as narcissism. Without understanding and recognition, you're in the dark. You're isolated and confused and feeling stuck in this cycle of abuse and trauma that will not end until you decide to make some changes. If you've ever felt drained, confused, or doubting yourself after being around someone in your life, especially if you're a mom trying to protect your family, this video is for you. We're going to be shedding some light on what the research reveals about narcissism so that you can recognize it, understand it, and take back your power. We are the mothers. We are the mothers. We are the mothers. We are the mothers. We seek. We are the healing. We seek peace. So I want to highlight this really significant study that was published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology in 2008. It's considered the gold standard in the industry, and it's referred to as the Stinson Study. So its full title, which I think is pretty interesting, is Prevalence Correlates Disability and Comorbidity of DSM-4 Narcissistic Personality Disorder. Results from the Wave 2 National Epidemiologic Survey on Alcohol and Related Conditions. So I'm going to leave a link to this on the description box below so that you can go take a look at this study if you'd like to. And with most studies like this, I think it's good to give ourselves some perspective. These studies are often funded by maybe pharmaceutical companies or other people who have an agenda. So I think it's important to remember that we need to include this in the overall picture of how this works. But the way I interpret things like this is at least it gives us a baseline. It gives us some facts and some percentages so that it's more like a springboard to get us started. And then we know, right, as empathic moms, what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And so this is where our own discernment comes in through our own personal experiences. So we look at the facts, we compare those facts to our own personal experiences, and then through these behavioral dynamics, that's where all the light bulbs turn on. So what this study shows is that narcissistic traits aren't just these weird personality quirks. They actually exist on more of a spectrum, and they're present in a very significant part of the population. The narcissists among us are literally everywhere. So let's go into some of this research on this paper. I'm going to pull it up here. Okay, so this is the summary report. So it says the objective to present nationally representative findings on prevalence, sociodemographic correlates disability and comorbidity. This is what I think is really important to highlight. This is face-to-face interviews with 34,000 adults participating in the Wave 2 National Epidemiologic Survey. And the results was prevalence of lifetime NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, was on average 6.2%, with rates greater for men, on average 7.7%, than for women, which was 4.8%. And this is where I want you to take it with a grain of salt. It says it's significantly more prevalent among Black men and women and Hispanic women. In this section, what they're not telling you that's in the full report is that this was biased and they interviewed more Black men and women and Hispanic women than white or other races. So this is right where we have to use our own discernment and know that they do their own skewing of facts to change these rates. But this is just to give us an idea. They also interviewed younger adults, which they also skewed in the study. They interviewed more younger adults, and they interviewed separated, divorced, or widowed individuals and never married adults. So, of course, they have a higher percentage of separation, divorce, and widowing with narcissistic personalities because, like me, I married and divorced two narcissists. They're miserable people to be around. So, of course, their separation and divorce rate is going to be a lot higher. It's also associated with mental disability among men, but not women. And this is another important thing to highlight: high co-occurrence rates of substance abuse, mood and anxiety disorders, and other personality disorders. So, what we know in dealing with people who really struggle with different kinds of addictions is that they're underlying trauma, right? And with the trauma bonds that we see happen in narcissistic relationships, it essentially is like a relationship addiction. Your body gets addicted through the behaviorals, through the hormones, the physiological response to the abuse. So I think that's very interesting to take note of. It also happens lots of times with bipolar, which is something that I see pretty commonly with the moms that I talk to. It can happen with post-traumatic stress disorder and other types of class B personality disorders. So I actually went through and did a calculation. This 6.2% is a conservative estimate. When I did the exact calculation for what 6.2% is in the United States population, it was over 55 million people, which I just think is really interesting because I live out on the West Coast, and out West, what we talk about in our groups and communities is how we're all separated by 6 degrees of separation. So essentially, you can apply this to your own life in this way. Like 1 in every 6 people you know has narcissistic personality disorder, but it's probably undiagnosed, because one of the really common parts of this is that narcissists don't think that they have a problem. They think everybody else is the problem. So it's underreported and it's undiagnosed in the majority. Sometimes people can get a diagnosis for this, but the vast majority of the time it goes undiagnosed. And that's one of the reasons it's so important for us as mothers to learn to understand what the behaviors and the patterns are so that we can recognize them. One of the other really significant factors that stood out to me in this study was in individualistic cultures like we have in the United States and in Western Europe. They tend to have higher reported levels of narcissism because these societies value self-promotion and personal achievement. And I personally believe, through my own research and study and experience in doing this for a lot of years, talking to hundreds of moms all over the world, that this isolation, this individualism, this sort of cultural habit, identity, tendencies that we have in the United States, because that's where I live, is very conducive to these types of personality disorders. Because one of the other things that we know in mental health is that connection is one of the key tools for helping to support people through mental health challenges. And it's significant to note in narcissistic personalities, we do the opposite. We do not want to have continued connection with them because they're so abusive, because they traumatize us. We do not want to do that. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to understand and learn as individuals dealing with these types of personalities all over the place. So, whether a narcissist is diagnosed or not doesn't really matter, right? We're just working on understanding these cycles of abuse so that we can protect ourselves and our kids from it. Because there are a lot of tools and strategies that I teach that I would like to share with you so that we're all in this together, right? It's all about family and community and how we can work together to lift each other up and support each other. And it's interesting because of another common trait of those of us who have dealt with these kinds of personalities and these kinds of relationships is this overwhelming experience of isolation, right? You try to share what you're going through with your friends or family members, and they don't understand. And it's not because you're crazy, and it's not because you're misreading the cues and the signs and your emotions aren't correct, right? Like we can never judge emotions. We feel how we feel. But narcissists actually wear this mask and they interact and engage with everyone very differently. So your direct experience with a narcissist is going to be completely different than somebody else who they're not as comfortable with. They're going to present themselves as a different persona to everybody else except for you, because you, the person in the relationship with the narcissist, sees what everyone else doesn't see. So I want that to help you feel validated in what it is your experience is, because that's one of the places where I think there's a lot of information lacking. So there's nothing wrong with you, right? Just because you've had this experience, like, congratulations to you for recognizing it and for not taking it on as your own, right? Like, you don't have to be responsible for these, trauma and abuse tactics that they're using on you. Your job is to educate and empower yourself so that you know what to do to protect yourself, that you are not alone. It's not your fault. And some of these tools that we can put into place are personal boundaries, right? Protecting your own emotional well-being, helping you to create a healthy environment for yourself and for your children so that you can break these cycles for our kids, right? For the next generations. Because when you know what you're up against, you can reclaim your strength, you can protect your family. It's all about this mental and emotional cycle of abuse. And then we're also going to pull in there this spiritual aspect. Because for so long, and in the industry of mental health, it's mental, right? They focus on the mind. And with our doctors, our physical health, they focus on the body. And then we've got our spiritual health, right? But so many of our spiritual institutions and organizations, as well as the medical and educational, so many of these industries are inundated with narcissists. They're lacking accountability. And for us who are highly sensitive empaths, like, this is one of the reasons that we're just not resonating with these people. It doesn't feel right. Like, we can feel in our body if it resonates or if it doesn't resonate. And it's really important to pay attention to that, because when we get stuck in these cycles of trauma and abuse, particularly with narcissists, that's where they chip away at us mentally and emotionally, when really our emotions are always there guiding us. There's always a reason that we feel how we feel. And when we bring in the empowered spirituality from our higher soul self, from our inner knowing, from our intuition, we never go astray. But that's part of this process of healing, is learning to identify what's yours, what's not, what's the truth, what's not, what's your experience and what's not. It's a very holistic approach to doing this healing work. So if you're an empathic mom who is ready to break free from this cycle, I just want to encourage you to stick around on this channel, to like, to share, to follow along, because I really am on a mission to educate and empower all moms with kids who are going through this so we can break these cycles. I want to share practical strategies and heartfelt support to help you move through this. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, take care.